And so today I wanted to kick off with some misconceptions about consistency. So every pool player I talk to that wants to improve, one of the things that almost everybody seems to say is, I need to be more consistent. And what happens, I think the reason for this is because they have a really good day when they're playing their best. When they're playing their best and they're in the zone and they're flow and they're feeling good and they're rating packages and they're just like, yep, I just want to be able to do that all the time. I just want to play more consistently at the top of my game. And that is their goal, which is fine. That makes sense. That's a fun goal. Of course, who doesn't want that? But the problem is that they misunderstand how pool improvement works and they misunderstand what's possible. And through that, because of that misunderstanding, they come up with an ineffective action plan and they end up costing themselves a lot of pain and struggling to get better. So here's what goes wrong is when they have that approach, when their goal is consistency, they're like, I already have the capability of playing well, so therefore I just need to do it more consistently. When the goal is consistency, without fail, the people that want to be more consistent conclude that the way to do that, it must be fundamentals. It must be, I already have the capability of doing this, so in order to do it more and more and more accurately, I just need to get my fundamentals tighter and tighter. It must be a fundamental issue that I'm not able to do this consistently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a Coke bottle and I'm going to stroke into that Coke bottle for, 100 times a day. And eventually I'll turn into a robot where I just don't make these errors. And it's just, fundamentals, listen, their fundamentals are important. And there are people where, maybe some effort on fundamentals could be part of a solution. But as it is, that's not really the road that's going to take you forward. So the reality is, I want to talk about players have ranges of performance because we're human. So we all have a range of performance. And so let's just say there's a player and he has a Fargo rate of 600. So he plays at a strong AA, weak master level, whatever. He's a 600 Fargo rate. Well, he's not going to play exactly the same every day because we're humans. And some days we're really focused and hungry and motivated. And some days we fall into the zone. Other days we're irritable or distracted or just, things, whatever reason, who knows why, but we're human. We're not robots. And so if somebody is a 600 Fargo, there's usually a range of performance where he might play that level most of the time. Some of the time he might play as good as a 675 level. And some of the time you might play as poor as a 525 level. And so usually it's close to 600, but there's extremes. It's like a bell curve distribution. And 1% of the time he touches on that 675. And so the problem is there's no way that he could just tell himself, let's play my best all the time. That just doesn't, you can't force yourself to play in the top 1% of your range all the time. And then the other thing is, the reason why do people think that's possible? We're humans, but they think it's possible because they think the pros do it. They think, well, that's what the pros do. That's why they're pros, is because they found a way to consistently play, 700 Fargo rate speed all the time. But the answer is they're not consistent either. And so Mike Page with Fargo rate has done some videos and some really, really good explanations of this on AZ Billiards, is that the pros have a range just as big and they are just as inconsistent as the amateurs. The difference is that their skill level is so much higher that we don't notice the inconsistency as much. So, for example, if Shane is an 825 Fargo, well, if his range goes plus or minus 75 points, then some of the time he's playing as good as 900, but even on his worst days, when he's playing 75 points below his average, he's still performing at a 750 Fargo rate level, which means he's still running tables and playing extremely well. And so when you're watching a guy like Shane or Dennis or Josh Filler, all these guys at the absolute top, it looks like they're very, very consistent because they never play anything other than professional speed. But the actuality is that there's still a huge range and that they did not get there by perfecting their fundamentals and playing perfect all the time. They developed their skills to a point to where even on their bad days, it still looks pretty darn impressive. And so the conclusion, and I've got a couple examples, so this isn't the end, but the conclusion is this. It's not about improving consistency, and it's not about improving fundamentals perpetually to achieve this impossible goal of consistency. The goal has to be to develop your skills so that your entire range lifts. So if you're a 600 and you want to play 675 consistently, then you need to actually develop your game so that the high part of your range is up in the 700s so that you play 675 most days. And if you want to get to where you play 675 every day, well, then you need to develop your range, really, really high so that even your worst days are at that level. The only way to get to a level consistently is to develop your skills, to push your entire range of play forward. And so I'm going to give you a couple of examples that hopefully really drive this home. So the first example is I have a thought experiment. Suppose there's a guy that has a 5-ball run that he practices. He's playing 9-ball. He's got to shoot them in order, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and he gets to take ball in hand and try to run these balls out. Okay. He knows how to make the 5 and get on the 6, but he has no idea how to pocket the 6 and get on the 7. Completely lost. He's like, I just don't know how to get from the 6 to the 7. So what he can do, though, is he knows that if he just plays a stop shot of the 6, he's dead hooked on the 7, but he can try to jump over the 9. Yeah, he just has a jump. I'll just accept the jump shot because I have no idea how to get shape. I will accept this jump shot on the 7 ball. But then if he can make that jump shot, the 8-9 is pretty easy. So every day he practices this 5-ball run. And every day he makes the 5, makes the 6, tries to jump in the 7-ball, and then run the balls out. And let's just say that he could make that jump shot 20% of the time. And to keep it really easy, let's say that he never misses any of the other balls. He always makes all the balls. He jumps in that ball 20% of the time, which means he runs this 5-ball run, 20% of the time he runs these 5 balls out. Great. And now he decides, man, I've been practicing this. I'd really like getting better at this run out. I'd really like to improve this run out. How do I do that? Well, in his mind, he's like, well, I make all the other balls. I seem to miss this jump shot. Therefore, hence, I need to improve my jump shot skills. That's the answer. And so he goes to work on this jump shot. He's practicing this jump shot hours and hours and hours, trying to find a way to lift up his jump percentage. And he's thinking, it must be a fundamental issue. If I could make this jump shot some of the time. If I could jump this ball in every time, then I would run out every time and I'd be the best in the world. So therefore, it must be something with my back arm. I must be trembling. I must not be sighting it right. I need to work on my jump shot and my fundamentals, and then eventually I'll run these balls out every time. But little does he know that the best jumpers in the world are only like 30% to make the 7-ball jump. And so he can sit there and practice, and maybe his run out percentage goes from 20% to 22% to 24% over years of painstaking jump practice. But on the other hand, if he learned a new skill, such as a way to get from the 6 to the 7 to work around that jump shot, maybe he could find a route that's 90% to give him a shot, and that he can make almost every time. Maybe he can run out 80-90% of the time. And all of a sudden, by learning a new skill, instead of painstakingly pounding your head against the wall for years and years and years, trying to creep up by 1 or 2%, by learning new skills, you could transform that whole run out experience and achieve a level of consistency that's actually much, much higher. And I'll tell you, the one other quick example I've got, and I've seen this come up too, because a lot of players in my area play bar table 8-ball. And I've had people tell me this. They say, you know what? I know I can run tables because I have days where I can run, I've run multiple tables and I've run a couple racks in a row. And I've had times when I run tables, but then a lot of days I don't. I just need to be more consistent. And I'm like, no, because what happens is the same type of thing. If you have an 8-ball player that runs out 10% of the time, well, let's think about this. Out of 100 breaks in 8-ball, maybe you've got 60 of them that are average. A lot of balls open, a couple balls tied up. You've got 20 of them that are really easy, where all the balls happen to be open and sit in front of holes. And then you've got 20 of the racks that are really tough, where there's multiple clusters, lots of congestion, just not really a good to get starter. And so if somebody's running out 10% of the time, they're not running out each of those, they're not running out 10% of the time from each of those different starting opportunities. What they're doing is they're waiting for the bottom 20%, the easiest 20%, where all the balls are wide open, sit in front of holes. And then half that time they're stumbling through the rack and able to get out. And so if you're a 10% 8-ball run out player, you can't just sit there and say, well, I know how to run tables. Therefore, I don't know why I can't do it more often. It must be my back arm. It's like, no, you're stumbling through the easiest 20% and barely getting there. What you need to do if you want to run out 50% of the time or 60% of the time is you're actually going to have to develop your skills to overcome some of the challenges such as short side shape and tight quarters position and breakouts and all these things. You're going to have to develop your skills to be able to run out through some of the more difficult racks, because then if you develop your skills, you'll run out more of the easy racks, and you'll actually start getting up in the high branches and picking the high hanging fruit and start picking up some of the more difficult racks as well. So it's all about developing your skills, not about saying, well, I proven I can do this, therefore I need to do it every time. Therefore it's consistency. It's my fundamentals. I got to start mapping out how I stand on my shots, and it must be about my foot placement. That must be the path to everything. So I'm not trying to say that fundamentals aren't important, but I think that this idea, everybody has a best day. But the idea that because we have a good day once in a while, we must play this game right and we must play this game correctly, and it must just be about consistency, and it must therefore be about fundamentals, and then spending years and years and years, beating our head against the wall, trying to understand why we're not suddenly able to play our best every time. Like, I want to rescue you people from that trap. The real answer is you need to develop your skills. You're not good enough. Your best day is not good enough. You need to develop your skills so that your best day gets better and better and better and drags your average day up with it. That's the only way to go. And then you're going to ask me, well, okay, if it's not fundamentals, what are those skills that I need to develop? Where should I be focusing on if it's not my back arm? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know what skills you need to develop. I don't know what it is because I don't know you and I haven't seen you play. But I can tell you, at least if you're asking that question, what should I be developing? What are the skills that I need to add to my game to take me to the next level? At least if you start asking that question, at least you're on the right track now and you're not completely just spinning your wheels. So why don't you start with that question? What skills do you need to develop for your best game to get quite a bit better? Why don't you start with that question and see if you can actually make some progress? And if you need help, then I'm at MinnesotaPoolBootcamp.com, and that's what I do is you come, I take a look at how you play. And like Conor McGregor says, I'll change your bum pool life. So there you go.